So my game room is in my basement, and my basement's currently going through some issues. It's a little chilly down here. So if you hear a fan in the background, that's the space heater. I put a space heater in front of my video games and consoles so that they don't get cold. Because I care, I care about the video games. Space heater for me and my cat? Absolutely not. Space heater for the video games? Absolutely yes. What we have here today is Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2, the sequel to the game of the year, the Sith Lords. Reason I wanted to do this one, I've done a couple of Xbox ones already, but the reason I wanted to do this one is this is something that you'll see kind of a lot, kind of sometimes. I guess it depends on the area and where you're from. Packing tape. Oh, packing tape. So this one will be, I don't know, we'll get into it. The case is a little dinged up there. I'll probably end up swapping the case. This happens actually this happens a lot at GameStop. Happened a lot at GameStop. I don't know if it happens anymore, but this is what would happen if on the wire racking, if the game were to get caught and dragged on the wire racking, you would get this kind of abrasion. This can happen a lot of different places. Not really fixable at all, and you can see that it goes through. Come on, there you go. You can see that it goes through the case, but I got a little label there too. Packing tape is a little different. Packing tape you want to handle a little bit differently because you're not really removing the residue and pulling off the packing tape. You're pulling off the packing tape, but without stretching the plastic. So we'll get into it. I'll show you just all the different steps. I see this a lot. I see a lot of times people, especially in bulk buys and stuff, they'll go through it, packing tape the sides, done and done. So everything else is in decent enough shape. Oh, and it's a flex box too. I feel lied to. Disc is good. Yep. But see here, I was talking about this the other day. I was on something and I was talking about this. So this this little residue that you see in here, it's not on the underside. Okay, so it's not on that side, and it's not on the top side there. It is actually inside. So I'll show you what I mean. You see that? You see me scraping? You see that? So that's me scraping up that stuff. What causes that? It's also the wrong case. What causes that is when people are using disc buffers, disc restorers, disc cleaning machines, whatever you want to call it. That's what causes this. So they stick it down in there, and the disc sits down in there. A little spindle goes through it, and it'll get covered with a cleaning pad that kind of goes through and cleans. But it allows liquid to soak in between the two layers of the disc. It's not detrimental to like the functionality of the gameplay. It's not bad in that way, but it's not good for a number of reasons. One, it's not good because it just shows that they resurfaced it sometimes, and you can see. You see that spiraling in the orange and the red? Okay. That means that it was buffed at some point. You see my ring light? That proves that I'm a professional YouTuber. And the fact that I'm using a cell phone to videotape this, that means I'm professional. It's not detrimental to the disc necessarily, okay? What it does do is puts material in between the two layers. So this disc is actually two layers. It's a layer on top and a layer on bottom, and then the actual data layer in between. It puts material in between the two layers that just shouldn't be there. So liquid got into between the two layers and is drying, and now you have this material. That's not great. I have a couple of other examples of that, but it's not great. It doesn't hurt anything that I know of, but it's one of those things that I try to get it out, and really the only way I know of is to scrape it out. And you scrape out little pieces and little pieces and little pieces. Fine. But I don't like the idea of it being in between the two discs because I don't know what's going to happen to it. It might separate the two discs. This is not a disc video, though. This is a video on how to fix up a case that has been covered. Oh, goodness. It's sticking somewhere. She's sticking some... Oh. I swear I'm professional. So if they do this and they tape everywhere, just go in and just cut the tape apart. And you want to be careful when you do this because you don't want to tape, you don't want to cut the cover art, you don't want to cut the plastic. So what I do when I do that is I'm just angling the blade, probably not even on camera. There it is. I'm just angling the blade downward so that it cuts right along the tape. If you were to angle this up in any way, you would slice off a layer of the cover art. We don't want to do that. Even though this cover art is junk, we want to be able to pretend like we're going to be, even though this case is junk, cover's fine. We want to go ahead and pretend like we're going to fix it up nice. Now look at that, see? I mean, that's fantastic looking. And a little wrinkle there. Wada would give it a, I don't even know, a 5, something stupid like that. But no, this is in great shape. And if the case is really the only issue, we could get this fixed up. Like I said, that is irreparable. But like I said, the rest of the stuff, we could do some business too. That might be... Original Xbox was when... That color looks right. Original Xbox was when they were kind of all over the place with different manufacturers for cases. At any rate, first thing you want to do is start on the inside. And I have... Oh, what do we want to use? We'll use this little guy. Actually, no. We'll use one of these. You can use whatever you want. You know, you can use these scrapers. You can use whatever kind of thing you want. You just want something that's got a good paddle to it. You don't want it to necessarily be sharp. You want to work on the rounded edge. I'm trying to think of what else you could use. Any kind of phone opening thing. I mean, heck, if you have these little guys here, they'll work the same. Basically, what we're going to do is just pull up the tape wherever it is on the inside, okay? And so removing the tape from the inside case, the actual plastic case, is fairly straightforward, okay? And you can see that just pops off. That does absolutely nothing at all. But then if we add that same kind of pressure to it and it's stuck on the actual plastic sleeve part, you'll notice that we start to get a little bit of resistance in there, okay? And so that resistance isn't really something that we necessarily want to hack away at with chemicals and everything. We can to get it started, to get it moving, but there's a couple of different ways around it. When you're dealing with tape like this, you always want to have a tab, but you want to get as much of it closed as possible. I'll show you on this one what I mean. So you're going to peel up this part, and then you're going to roll it forward so that you have a little bit of a tab to work with, but you're not necessarily dealing with the whole sticky thing, because the last thing you want is for the stickiness of the packing tape to go right back onto the plastic that you're trying to pull it off of. Well, that happens sometimes, which is fine. That's totally fine. And the reason that I'm showing you all of this, I'm currently dealing with this right now. It's stuck to my hand. The reason I'm showing you, get off, all this and just what you do manually is, I think a lot of people would see this and they would say, well, let me take heat to it. You know, let me take a hairdryer to it and I'm going to loosen up the tape. That's not necessarily what you want to do in this instance. You also certainly don't want to use Goo Gone in this instance. You want to just get the tape released from the cover. Okay? So tape release from the case, tape release from the case, tape release from the case, and that's it. Okay. At this point, the thing that you're going to be fighting against is how loose the plastic is going to become. So you can see here that the plastic has become really, really loose. All right. If we were to pull on this, all that would do is stretch out this part of the cover art, the sleeve itself, if we were to do that. So you have to work your angles, and you have to understand that this is a good tight angle, this is a good tight angle. So if you do start pulling, you want to make sure that you're stretching the plastic in the same direction that you're peeling so that you're getting some good resistance going. And usually, if the plastic is old enough and the tape is old enough, it'll come right up. Since this is a junk case, and I know that I'm not going to use it, I'm going to show you why you want to go in that direction, why you don't want to go in another direction. Okay, so here's a perfect example right here. If I were to come up here and just peel this just like that. See what that caused? See that little divot right there? And it probably won't come up. There you go. So that's what it does, okay? If you pull, you're going to get a fold in the plastic of the cover art from where it released. Every time I try to take a piece of tape off, it like fights me. Same thing on this one, I'll show you. So this is just going to stretch out the tape, okay? It's going to stretch everything out, and you're going to end up with a really bad seam on this side, okay? You have to add that pressure to have it be pulling against something, and it's like you're pulling off. There you go, a little better angle. So you put pressure down on this thumb, pressure down on these hands, on these fingers that are on this side, and you just want to get as much pressure as possible and keep the plastic taut so you don't stretch it out too much. And still, even though I did that a slightly more preferred way, look at that. You still get that, okay? This is not something that you want to necessarily rush. This is something where you want to take your time with it and make sure that you are stretching the plastic as tight as possible while you're pulling, but pulling in a good direction that you're not pulling along with the stretching. So if you're stretching to the left, okay, you don't want to pull the tape to the left and stretch in the opposite direction. I'm really bad at explaining some of these things. So here's another one. It's probably one of the last ones. I'll be stretching the tape down along this way, and I'll be pulling to the left, and I'll be pulling the tape off on the right. So stretching on the left, pulling the tape on the right. If I did it on the same side, so if I was pulling the tape on this, and I was pulling to the left, and I was stretching the tape on the left, what it would do is it would just loosen this seam. That sounds crazy and is a little difficult to explain, but you will see it when you start to work with getting, especially packing tape. This is something that with packing tape, it is as strong, if not stronger, than the plastic case itself. So you have to make sure that how you're stretching it and in what direction you're going and everything is not going to just make the packing tape stretch the plastic that it's attached to. So, got some tweezers. Every time to make sure that you guys know that I clean my tweezers. And you just want to get an edge up. And we might not because we don't have that much to work with. I don't know if you can see that too well. So we got some options. It doesn't really want to scrape up all that well. And watch, when you scrape it, you see how the whole thing folds because this thing's just been stretched all high heaven. So you want the same kind of reverse pressure on it to see if it'll pull up anything. It might not. And you don't necessarily want to fight with the top edge too much because that top edge is very loose. That top edge is looser than anywhere else on here. So you want to find something closer to the bottom that you can kind of get going with a little bit. We got a little tiny lip. That's not as much as I would want, but it's pretty good. And the issue that you can run into here is if you dig in too far at too much of a deep angle, so there's your surface and you dig in too much at a deep angle, you can run the risk of poking the plastic with your scraper. Okay. Okay. Just gonna grab it with my fingers. And then the same deal. You're gonna pull in the opposite directions. So you put your fingers down on there, you pull down on here, and then if you have to adjust as you go along, adjust as you go along. There. See? A little bit of an abrasion, a little bit of marking on there, but it's not terrible. I'm good at taking stickers off of cases, not necessarily off of me. So, like I said, the biggest thing is reverse tension and pressure in one direction, pull the tape in the other direction, and you'll get a good result every single time. That looks to be it. Man, that stinks. I have spare cases, though, for this reason. So then we just check on here. Ba-boom. And then we get up here. And you notice I'm doing this sort of this kind of a motion where it's getting pulled up. And that's what you want to do just so you don't necessarily mar any of the plastic. Because your plastic scrapers can damage the plastic of the case. So there's a couple of little spots. You can see that one right there. There's a couple of little spots here and there. But honestly, she's looking pretty good. That might be an abrasion through and through. All right. So then, disinfecting wipe, cleaning wipe. And again, you want something that's got a little texture to it, so you can kind of get down on in there and get it clean and everything. There's a couple of spots I'm going to keep my eyes on. There you go. Yeah, there's one back here. And just mix up the movements and mix up the directions and everything that you're going into just to make sure that you're getting it scrubbed off. And actually the one, I don't know if you can see it necessarily on the camera, but the one's gone, which is pretty cool. So you stand it up and you let it hang out for a second. That's a good enough second. So you dry the whole thing. Yeah, this plastic is so loose though. It's kind of a downer. There you go. So packing tape is one that I try to not use chemicals on just because I think you can do it. I think anyone can get rid of packing tape just by using, angles and being smart about how they're taking it off and not necessarily having to bring in a bunch of chemicals to those kinds of things. The reason being, if you were to put isopropyl alcohol on here, some of these are really gross. If you were to put isopropyl alcohol or heptane or something like that on here, it's going to release the adhesive, but it's also going to release the adhesive, so everything's going to get a lot stickier. So that's not necessarily something that you want. So that is, yeah, you can still see that one. Again, that's literally just the nature of what happens if you put packing tape on a case, realistically. But the cover art should help a little bit. Let's see. Yeah, cover art should help a little bit. So it's not that noticeable. I see a little bit of smudging over there. Yeah, all right, whatever. But there you go. Yeah, you don't necessarily always need chemicals to take every single thing off, and that's something that I definitely want to make sure that I'm showing you guys. A lot of this stuff you can get clean just by, a plastic scraper or, one of these stick things. These work as well. Actual guitar picks work as well. I'll do a guitar pick one too. because you don't always just need to go to the Goo Gons and the hair dryers. Some of the stuff can come up and can clean up really nicely, and then the game that you're left with, you're like, oh, that's in really good condition. If I was feeling super fancy, I would probably do a light spray of like Nova Step 1 or Armor All or something on it. Yeah, Armor All on here just to give it a little bit more of a shine. But honestly, the plastic is a little faded, so that wouldn't really do much good. So tools we used. I had Q-tips ready to go. Never needed them. And you don't necessarily need the tweezers. It doesn't hurt. But so tools that we used, just a plastic scraper, like always. A couple of different kinds of plastic scrapers. Again, you don't necessarily need something super fancy. You know, you don't need to get into like an iFixit kit or something. X-Acto knife or utility knife, whatever you have, just some kind of a knife that you feel confident cutting things off with. Tweezers will help where if you're trying to get a little piece up, you're trying to pry up a little smidgen here or there. But yeah, everything on this one kind of cleaned up really nicely. And that's a short, quick clean that you can do without having to bust out the chemicals, without having to do all the craziness that a lot of these other videos have. So, as always, let me know what things you want to make sure that I have on my list. I have a giant list of things that I am going to show people how to use, different methods, different techniques and stuff. So just drop me a line if there's something where you said, hey, make sure you show how to do this. My Famicom video that I made not too long ago, that's going to be a separate series where I'm going to be showing off how to open and disassemble every kind of video game cart that's out there. I have a Virtual Boy one that's done. I have a Super Nintendo one that's done. I have a bunch of them. And I'll be making a series of that so that if you are brand new to video games in general, you will know how to open things and how to feel confident opening those things. And then I'll also still be addressing different situations. How to remove it with Goo Gone, isopropyl alcohol. I got a couple of new cleaners over the weekend that I'll be doing some investigating on, seeing how they work, breaking down the chemicals, seeing what's all in them and what they would be good for. Oh, what else? That's about it. Again, if you know of a collector or you know someone that has a lot of games, let them know about this channel, but also let them know that I want to know what people want to see get cleaned. I've been doing this for so long that I don't have a lot of games that need cleaned anymore. I spend a lot of time learning my own techniques and practicing them that I don't have the games to clean, so I don't necessarily know what people want to see. So, if there is something that you want to see, let me know. Perfect example, I have been searching on the internet for a while for a VGA or WATA sealed and graded video game. I want to do a video where I take it out of its case, fix it up, clean it up, tighten it, whatever I need to do. Yeah, you can do those things to sealed games. I'll tell you all about it. And then send it back to get it graded and see if the grading changes. A couple of the listings that I have seen there was one, and it was way too much for a dumb experiment, but it was a copy of Resident Evil 0 for the GameCube. I think it was a player's choice version, and it was graded and sealed. It was sealed, brand new in box, and it was graded, and it was in the case, but it had a price sticker on it. And it got graded like that. WATA and VGA, they are not going to remove those kinds of cases. Just last week, I did a video on our Discord chat. I did a video where I removed a price label from a new sealed game. So it was Shadow Hearts for the PS2. I'd had it for a while. I have it sealed. It's the third Shadow Hearts, whatever that one's called. I had a big price label on it. And I showed how to remove that without affecting the labeling, without affecting the cover, the sealing, anything. Just how to do that. And that's a video that I'll do again. And I'll post it here on YouTube so that everyone can kind of get an idea of, even if you have brand new in box sealed games, there's still stuff that you can do to tighten those things up. So, as always, be sure to leave a comment about what you do or didn't like. If my space heater is too loud. I'm very sorry. It's super cold in this basement. I'll do a room tour at one point. I think you guys will get a kick out of what all's down here. So I've finally been able to set up a proper game room. I'll do a tour so you can kind of see all the stuff and everything that I have. It's unsurprisingly, obnoxiously organized. But leave a comment. Tell me what you want to see more of. If there's a big question that you might have, I get a lot of people asking on Discord and Twitter and the internets about different things. How would I approach this? How to approach that? One that I need to do is a price label on cardboard. So that's definitely something that's going to be sooner rather than later. Is a lot of people are getting collector's editions that are in cardboard boxes that have a price label on it. And so I'll be sure to do that as well. So until next time, I'm going to keep cleaning. All right, see you guys.